Hi there, welcome to my build of this 45-inch wingspan New Era 3 Revisited. Now in the previous videos we've been working on the wing and getting that built up and finished, and now it's looking really good. Just need a little bit of finishing to the ball nose and the wing tips. In this video I'm going to be starting the fuselage, and that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to this bit. I've read the build article that comes in the magazine that comes with the plans, and that article's available on AutoZone as well. Now I'm going to be more or less following the suggested build method, which is a little bit different to what I've done before, and I've just been laying it out on the bench, and I'll just move the camera around and we'll take a look at this and I'll show you what I'm doing. Right, we've got all of the components we need now to build the basic fuselage structure. We've got the two sides here, which I built in a previous video. You might have seen that, hopefully. But what I've done since then is I've bolted them together, 3mm bolts, just so that I can plane them and finish them and get them identical, so they're exactly the same size. And I'll take those bolts out and I'll just plug the holes, and then I can sand that and these holes will disappear. But it's good to make sure fuselage sides are identical. I've then got this 3/8 piece of balsa here, 10mm, which is actually going to will form the top of the fuselage, and we're going to build the fuselage upside down. So that's the way the sides go, but we're going to build it like that. Now before we can stick the fuselage sides on, I need to, well, it's suggested that you actually put in the cross formers first. So you glue in the cross formers, and then there's this small one here that we actually build up a little bit more later, and the firewall. Now the firewall, I've got the engine on at the moment. It's my Irvine 25, and that's actually offset a little bit. You can just see it's over to this side of the former, and the reason it's offset is because it's going to go in at an angle to create 2.5 degrees right thrust, and having it offset just brings this drive shaft to the central line, back to the center line. So that will go on there like that. Now, and then what we're supposed to do is put in the triangular stock, but I think it'd be a lot more accurate and easier if I put in the triangular stock and then just trim the corners off these formers, cross formers, to fit. So that's how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to glue in this triangular stock on both sides. Now I've got to work out where that triangular stock is going to go. So the way I've done that is I've got a centre line down this down this piece of balsa, and I've cut out a plan of the fuselage, and this has got a centre line which I've lined up with the centre line on the balsa. Now you can see on this, just tilt that, now you can see on this we've got the fuselage sides there shown, and so hence the triangular stock needs to go on the inside of that. So it needs to go on the inside of this second line. So what I've done is I've just gone along with a T-pin, and I've just put a load of holes, a load of holes on the on that line, on that inside line. And now if I take off the plan, we can actually see, I don't know whether that will show up on the camera, but there's a line of holes here and here which show that inside edge. So now we know where we're going to line up this this triangular stock. Once we've got that triangular stock in, as I said, we can trim the formers to fit. We can accurately trim these corners off so it fits onto the triangular stock quite nice, like that. I've done these a little bit, but they then will need finishing so they fit properly. I've done this former slightly high, slightly longer than it needs to be, so that when it's in the fuselage I can just sand it down so it meets that perfectly. We'll come back and we'll have a look at this when I've got all this laid out and glued in place. Well, I thought I'd do a quick update on where we are with the fuselage. You can see I've put the triangular stock in right from the tail up to where it meets the firewall. Where the firewall is, I've put in an extra piece of triangular stock which will go against the back of the firewall. Wasn't on the plans, but when I was trying to line this up, I just thought that would make it a lot easier if I get that triangular piece first and then the firewall can just butt straight up against it. And when I glue it, which I'm going to do in a minute, I would just put some balsa that raises my weight above this 10mm piece, this 3/8 piece, and I can just use my square weight to press against that to keep that nice and square. And I've got that at the correct offset angle, so I get my 2.5 degrees right thrust. Now, I've got the first part of F2 in, that's glued in. I've got F3 glued in and ready. Now, if we have a look at the firewall, just a couple of things to point out on this. I've got blind nuts which are holding the engine mount, and I've got a couple of holes in for the fuel lines, or the fuel line and the exhaust pressure off to the muffler. Now, I've got this single leg. This is a 4mm leg, it's 8 gauge, which is actually quite heavy, and I'm surprised it's so heavy, but that's what's specified on the plans, so I'm going with that. I do need to cut this off and bend it again because it's a little bit too long at the moment. I've got a collar on here to hold it in place, stop it coming out, and I've got the control linkage on the bottom. If I just... What I've had to do is I've put a piece of 2mm ply on this firewall just to lift up the engine mount to give a little bit of clearance here for this collar, and I've actually cut out a little bit of timber there so it doesn't catch, and I've done the same on that. I don't know whether that'll show, but I've done the same here. Cuts a little bit of the firewall out just so it rotates nice and freely. There's no dragging or catching. I don't know whether I just said this, but I put a hole there for the linkage through to the throttle, and I've also put a hole there for the connection through to this arm here. It was originally shown on that side, but I've changed it over, which is not a problem in working it with the servos, because with the engine mount being offset, we've got more space this side. If it was this side, it was going to come very close to the edge of the fuselage, so that's a better side to have it. And the slot I've actually made quite big. It's quite elongated, so that when it's set up, it's got quite a bit of movement and it will flex. And I'm not going to glue that in place. I'll glue it back. I'll glue it further back, but when you've got a control arm like this and it's very close to where it's being fixed, the outer tube is being fixed from the control snake, it's it can cause problems. It's very difficult to get a good, smooth, clean movement. But if you've got a little bit of movement in this, then that will work a lot better. So that's what I've done. So I've also just finally put some pegs in the fuselage. I've just glued those in, and as soon as they're dry, I'll be trimming those off with my razor saw and sanding them flush. So what I'm going to do now is get on, and I'll take off the mount and the nose gear, and I'll get this firewall glued into place. I'm going to be using epoxy for this, whereas all this so far I've been using this aliphatic resin. Well, I've now got the basic structure of the fuselage finished, and it doesn't give us much indication of the sleek plane it's going to be. It looks a little bit like a fence post at the moment, but trust me, there's quite a lot of balsa to come off this, which is going to give this a really nice profile. And in the engine bay here, we've got balsa to go on and a nose ring, and this is all going to get shaped around, hopefully a nice sleek bullet shape. Now, I don't want to do anything else to this fuselage until I've actually fitted the wings. I want to fit them into this. I've got to fit them into this saddle, and there's quite a lot to come off, and we're going to set them at a 0 angle of incidence. So basically the same plane as this top of the fuselage here, which is essentially 0, and we're going to use that as our datum line. At the back here, I've put in some 6mm ply and some triangular stock, top and bottom, just to hold that. And I've also made some side strengtheners which will go on, but I won't put these on until after I've fitted the wings, because there is quite a bit to come off here, I think, particularly at the front edge. But I don't want to make it harder by having bits of ply at the side that I also need to take down. So once I've got the wing fitted, the bolts done at the back, the hole for the attachment at the front in this piece here, which is essentially going to form the second part of F2. Once I've got that done, I can then put those side pieces on. Now, I've left all of the rear of the fuselage open at the moment, and I think that's because the next job, after I've done the saddle, is going to be to fit the servos and the control rods down to the control surfaces. And I want to have free access in here, not only to help put the slots in the side for the control linkages to come out, but also for bracing the control linkages. So as I say, that's open. I've put a little bit of sheeting on, as with the front here, just to give the fuselage some rigidity when I'm fitting the wings. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope there was something useful in this, and I hope you'll subscribe and come back and see how we get on fitting the wings to the fuselage in the next video. So it's going to be really exciting seeing how this starts to take shape now, where we're actually fitting the wings onto the fuselage, and it's really going to start to take shape.